And for my birthday, I gift all of you my two favorite characters. Well, my favorite character and one of my most favorite characters, a book combining both of them. We get to talk about a really, really cool comic today. Welcome to Unbuckled Comics. If you're new, welcome. There's a liability form on the back table next to the big book of laws. Uh, Take a test. We are going to take the Gotham City Bar here at the end of the show. For those of you returning, thank you for your continued support. I am Unbuckled Cape, your host of this comic book review podcast, and yes, we are reviewing a comic book today. I feel like it has been a while since we have done this, so today we are going to be looking at Daredevil Batman. What? Daredevil Batman? Yes, that is what I said. Today we will be looking at a comic book that includes both Daredevil and Batman, written by E.G. Chichester, who I had the pleasure of doing an interview with and then meeting at the Hershey Comic Con this past summer. So if you have not, you can go check out those interviews. They are in the archives. I can't even begin to remember what episode number it was, but it's back there, not too far back. Um, but before we head out on patrol, let's gather some intel first. Oh, Linktree, that's the intel. linktr.ee/unbuckledcomics.com. That is where you find the hardly used Facebook, the hardly used X, the used once a week YouTube, and the used a couple times a week Instagram. Just being upfront with you guys. But no, the Instagram is worthwhile. I put a bunch of previews of the shows for that week, and then I also um, some of the interviews are on there as well. But also on our link tree, that is probably the one that I want to push the most. Is we have Discord over there, a Discord invite. If it doesn't work, you might need to hit me up on Instagram so I can make sure that it does work for you guys. But yeah, so anyway. Um, that is that. Discord is a lot of fun. We It's a really really cool community. We have a game over there called Capes Detective. That is where you can submit comments for episodes and vote on our Unbuckled tournament, which I am going to. I wanted to get to it this weekend, but this was a very very busy weekend. I do have the characters and the bracket picked out. I just haven't gotten our first set of voting out. I will make sure I do that this week, and then let's see. Maybe I can get to it. We'll see how the rest of the day goes. Maybe I'll get to it tonight yet, and we'll do Sunday is when we'll drop the new line to vote, and then the following weekend is when we'll close it. So we'll have just shy of a week worth of voting to go. Sound fair to you guys? If not, I will get it out to you tomorrow, and that'll be that. This weekend was such a busy weekend because we had, I think, what did we do Friday? Feel like this weekend was just nothing but chaos. Then Friday, oh, we were up really, really late getting ready because Saturday we had Bub, his second birthday party. It's hard to believe that I have a 2 year old, and the fact that I have a 2 year old means that this show is almost 2 years old, as I started this just really a month and a week after Bub was born. Um, So we did that and then came home and got ready, and my wife had a non-surprise party for me. And that's actually pretty funny. She had me completely fooled, and I had even made mention um, in the Discord at one point that I kind of had myself bamboozled. I thought I knew that we weren't having a party, or she wasn't throwing me a surprise party, and then she made a comment the other night that like made me think that we were, and I had myself completely and totally turned around. And then like Friday, she like I was upstairs and came downstairs and she was so upset and I'm like, what? And she just like, yes or no? You know what I'm gonna ask you? Like, I don't know, maybe. She's like, yes or no? The answer is yes or no. I'm like, yes or no to what? The question I'm gonna ask you, is it a yes or a no? It's like I was so frustrated. It's like just ask me the question. Like I am not a mind reader. Ask me a question. It's like, do you know about tomorrow evening? It's like, well, I do now. Like, and the thing is like she has not been able to throw me a surprise party or do something like that. Like as far as like gifts go, like she can surprise me with a gift. She bought me leg pads one time, and like I had no idea that's what she was getting me. And it was kind of funny because like she was asking me questions about like leg pads and stuff, and like how do they size them and whatever. And you know, I did not think she was gonna buy me leg pads because of how expensive they are. But so like she can surprise me with those kinds of things, but boy, when it comes to like doing something to surprise me, she has swung and missed on everything. And here is one that she absolutely and totally had me fooled on, and I would not have seen it coming. And she uh, she didn't stick to her guns. But in the end, it ended up being better that I knew because I could help prepare because I mean, the tear down from Bub's party to getting everything set up to then after Bub's, well, he didn't nap, but after attempting to nap, we let him open all of his presents and kind of played there, and then we cleaned that up. And like Saturday was a long, long day. And now that I am 30, and most of my friends are knocking on the door of 30 if they are not already 30. They all left, and my house was empty, other than my sister-in-law by like 9 o'clock. Uh, I was a little bit disappointed, I think, when people started to get up and leave. But boy, when everyone was out the door by 9, I was like, oh, thank God. It's funny how quickly these kinds of things change. I mean, and we had a great time. Everyone brought their kids. Their kids are all right around the same age as Bub and Dub. We had a couple of babies and a few toddlers, and it was just nice. The kids ran around and played. I got to sit there with a bunch of my friends that we really went the whole summer out without seeing most of them, and just getting to sit down and talk to them and have a couple of beers and sit on our really nice patio. I had the propane fire going. We had some college football on the TV. It was just a really, really nice evening. So big shout out to Mrs. Kate for putting all that together and, having me having me prepare food for my own party, thinking it was for someone else's party. That's someone at the party at my party pointed that out, and I was like, yeah, I guess I kind of was. But kudos to her for taking on throwing two birthday parties in one day. I will be a strong advocate to never do that again. I am beat. Aside from that, this is a comic book podcast, so let's get back into the more of a content here. I have finally caught up on Batman Superman World's Finest. The last story arc I read was the Imp one with Batmite. I really had a lot of fun with that. That story arc had me tickled. I like seeing all of the different imps from the fifth dimension, and what a great, I mean, that was issue. I think that ended on 26. No, 8. 28, I think, is what it ended on. And I've enjoyed every single one, including an annual. So close to 30 issues, and I have loved every single one of them. That, my friends, is pretty impressive, and how you know you have something really special in terms of a solid comic book run. I think my next pleasure read, quote unquote, pleasure read that I'm going to do is uh, the most recent 007 run from, that's Dynamite. Oh boy, I don't remember. Let me pull up my phone. I mean, I know it's Dynamite, right? Why would I not know that? Do subscriptions. The phone is a little slow at the moment. Yeah, it is Dynamite. So that is what I'm going to be reading next, the 007, most recent 007 run from Dynamite. For the show, I have the back half of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Volume 1, the IDW collection. And then after that, I am not sure. I actually am sitting here. I'm going to get some things ordered tomorrow and get some more comics in so we have them. Um, Ooh, after that, I get to read Godzilla Here There Be Dragons. And we're also going to soon set up for our Ask Unbuckled, our yearly Ask Unbuckled that I like doing, where I will just post a couple of times both on Discord, mainly on Discord, but I will be posting on social media as well, asking for questions of me about really anything and everything. And I go through and answer those questions. I'm going to probably piece that together sometime in October. So be on the lookout for that. So we're gonna have that come up, then Godzilla, Here There Be Dragons, and then I think our first book in December is going to be the help me out here. The Mask Omnibus. When I did an interview with inker Keith Williams, who worked on said book, that was the one that he recommended for me to read. I am going to be getting that here shortly, be reading that. And then we had a vote for our Cape Crusaders on the Discord, and we voted on a couple of different comics that I know I am going to be grabbing at some point, right? So this was just which one do you guys want me to buy first, right? So let's see. Where did I switched some stuff around here? Ah, there we go. Episode pools. So we had the Rise of Ultraman. Sorry, I always want to say Ultraman. The Rise of Ultraman, Zatanna by Paul Dini, The Mask Omnibus, and Terror Inc. And oops, I'm buying The Mask Omnibus anyway, even though it did not get a vote. And yeah, The Rise of Ultraman. Boy, I gotta figure that out. Won in a landslide, so I am also going to be grabbing that, and that is going to be pretty much going to finish out our year, believe it or not. Yes, depending on how big that mass comic is, if we do that in 2 episodes, that's our year. Because 2 weeks in December, I have some interviews flying through there, and then it's January, so we're getting close to ending the year. I'm not quite sure what we're gonna do in January, but yeah. Wow, it's hard to believe. It is hard to believe that we are at the end of September already and we're going to be rolling into that holiday season. It's also hard to believe that I've been rambling for 13 minutes and we have Daredevil and Batman to talk about at the same time. Shut up, Cape. Let Cape talk. All right, so this is not going to be an overly lengthy review. I don't know if I will mention it in the intro. This is gonna be, if I did mention in an intro, just maybe hit, go 60 seconds ahead or something like that. I'll make sure I talk to um a minute 20. Let's go there. So I kind of had this idea a long time ago. I say a long time, 6 months or whatever, to do a YouTube section where I actually do video, audio, me sitting in my room with my comics on the wall behind me, and I would review shorter comics and single issues, one shots, things like that, that I couldn't make up a whole review for. This is a chunkier one shot, so I felt like I could do a decent review on it. I felt like there is enough to talk about. And it's also just to see how I would do a smaller one, and if this goes well, and if I find some wiggle room in my day-to-day schedule, I might want to do some more of that and just have, maybe some some YouTube exclusive videos where I do coffee and a comic. I sit down with a cup of coffee and talk about a small comic. Okay, so if you skipped ahead, you're back. We're all caught up. Everyone's on the same page. Today we're going to be taking a look at Daredevil Batman, Daredevil slash Batman, maybe that's how you should say it. This is a rare crossover between Marvel and DC. It's not the only time this has happened. There was I want to say, the Justice League versus Avengers, and then there's the George Perez JLA slash Avengers, which I am looking at. I own that one. And then there's the one Amalga something. I can never remember how you actually say it, but where they take DC characters and Marvel characters and mash them together. And then there are a couple like smaller one-off ones. I think was Superman and Spider-Man in a book together. For some reason, those two stick in my head, but some smaller ones. So we're going to be taking a look at my favorite comic book character and one of my top three favorite Marvel characters. This was written by D.G. Chichester, his storied run on Daredevil. Daredevil Black Armor is really recent. Terror Inc. Night Stalkers and even Judge Dredd. Our artist for this one is Scott McDaniel. Nightwing, Daredevil, Batman, Superman, Birds of Prey, Teen Titans, kind of all over your staples for DC and Marvel. So, one of the things that first sticks out to me in this book is there's no like space time jump, no supernatural spells or any kind of divine intervention that brings these two characters, Daredevil and Batman, together. It's rather simple. It's crime. I think like normally, if I'm trying to think right, JLA slash Avengers, it's like a multiverse thing where their universes are molding together, mashing together, something like that. And that's the case for a lot of these crossovers. Batman and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, I think the Turtles fell into some kind of dimensional portal and they were in the DC universe. Not the case here. And I really appreciate that I don't have to sit here and think about how that they end up. We're just going to have a crime, and that crime is going to bring two crime fighters together, and we're just going to pretend that they've always existed in the same plane. Because this is something that is not canological, canon. Jesus. Because this is something that is not canon, um, doesn't fall on either hero's timeline. It's just a one-off fun story. Why not simplify it? Why do we have to justify these two living in the same space? Uh Two-Face kills Wayne Tech employees and makes his way to New York, stealing and killing the whole way there. So Batman and Daredevil share a lot of similar traits, like their resolve mostly, and their unwavering dedication to the mission. That makes these two characters really comparable. There is an interview that I did with Dan Chichester, and he mentions we do talk about this book a little bit, and he mentions that a lot of people say that Daredevil is Marvel's Batman. So I think that people see their, undying dedication to the mission, right? Being a force of good and justice and, balancing the chaos with the rule. But they're not totally similar, it's not like a skin over for each character. So it makes it kind of an interesting read because I think E.G. Chichester really focused well on maybe not how they were similar, but how they were different. We get a very early battle between the two, and Batman seems to have the upper hand on Daredevil. But you also get the feeling that Daredevil is holding back. Uh, on the other side of things, Two Face teams up with Mr. Hyde and is feeding him quote unquote smart pills developed by Wayne Tech. These smart pills basically implant a supercomputer into a person's brain, and then the more hyped up they get, the more adrenaline that flows, the quicker this supercomputer grows in their brain, and eventually it kills the host, but then you have a very high powered processor to auction off. It's really not the point of the story, and I'm sure maybe someone smarter than me would be able to follow it a little bit better. But the point of the story, Mr. Hyde is, I mean, he's there, but he's not very important. Um, they are looking for what they're looking for in this book is for you to see Batman, the Daredevil, and the Two Face. Uh, Matt Murdock and Harvey Dent, Daredevil and Two Face, respectively. They know each other from law school, actually, and this makes Matt rather sympathetic to Harvey Dent, which is in direct contrast to Batman's anger of responsibility for what Harvey has done. So we see in other comics where Batman is rather sympathetic to things that Dent has done, but this is, I guess, a point in Batman's career where he's tired of feeling guilty because he does feel like he is in part responsible for the creation of Two Face. He let Harvey Dent down. So everyone that Harvey kills or harms, Batman has a little extra guilt on his conscience, a little more than if it would be the Penguin or Freeze or something like that. So again, normally I think you would see Batman be a little bit more lenient on Dent because he is such a personal character for Batman. Not the case in this one, but we do see Daredevil being very sympathetic and, kind of defending the whole, Harvey's just hiding behind the mask. It's not really him and this and that. And Batman's just brushing him off and being the very brooding, standoffish Batman. A second standoff goes to Daredevil as they actually have they play chicken in the streets. I can't remember where we talked about this before. Oh, it was in we watched Batman 89 and did a review on that. It was a Patreon exclusive. I do plan on releasing it for everyone here within the next few months. But there is a scene where Batman is playing chicken with the Joker, and it almost feels like a step for step of the Dark Knight one where Batman is going after the Joker on the Bat Cycle and then rules. This is very, very similar where Batman is in the Batmobile and he is driving hard and fast at Daredevil, and Daredevil is trying to analyze the heartbeat of Bruce Wayne, and he decides to stand even though he's not 100% sure because Batman is so committed to what he's doing, it makes it impossible to tell if he's bluffing or not. But Daredevil stands his ground and Batman swerves out of the way, and the two go on their own separate ways to try and track down Two Face and Mr. Hyde. As I mentioned, Two Face is growing this processor in Hyde's head, and Hyde becomes more violent and impulsive, and Toothface really just feeds into it because it's going to make him money in the long run. In the end of this book, the final bout sees an underpowered Hyde, still like strong as Bane, but Batman says about reading his dossiers, and he has a punch that would send Superman into orbit. And this processor that's growing inside of his brain actually hinders his physical strength because his body is so um, preoccupied with growing this processor, it can't put energy and strength into other areas. So an interesting way of power balancing these characters, because that's another thing that I really didn't think about until reading that section of this comic is when you bring characters from different universes, like everyone knows Superman is stronger than Batman, and Bane is super strong, but he's not gonna really do much to Superman. See Superman the animated series season 2, I believe it was, where Superman impersonates Batman, and he ends up fighting Bane, and it's really funny. But anyway, so um, yeah, I kind of lost my place with that little looking at my shelf there. So an interesting way to power balance was to say, okay, well, let's make it so that Mr. Hyde in the Marvel universe may be strong, but let's tone it down so he doesn't just beat Batman into a pulp, basically, or seem too overpowered. Or it's just, it was a clever way to get that Hyde character to what you want it to be. He is very strong, but and I believe this is the first time I've read a story with that Hyde character in it, so I don't really know much about him. I'm not sure how strong he's supposed to be. But, say it was the opposite. Say you wanted to use Mr. Hyde, but you needed to step up his power. You could do the same thing where that processor is actually feeding off of hormones and stuff and pumping him back tenfold, and you could have made him stronger rather than weaker. Um, Again, just something that I would have never thought of when you cross two universes. How do you power balance some characters that, in this case, he is the only one that had to be because Batman and Daredevil don't actually have superpowers, so he was the only one that you really needed to be concerned with that. So, Two-Face takes some hostages because that's just kind of what Two-Face does, and it creates all this chaos. Um, Another thing that you kind of expect to see, especially after reading, maybe like the JLA/Avengers, we typically see a final confrontation or a confrontation through methods. Batman and Daredevil use pretty much the same methods. I do believe every once in a while Daredevil will kill, especially if it's like just a random hand, soldier or whatever. But for the most part, he really does not. He really tries not to. He believes in the law and he wants everyone to have their day in court. That's why he's a lawyer. Batman doesn't kill. So I did, when I got through the end of this, felt like that was a misstep, but I don't think it hurt the book. It actually made it a little bit like, oh yeah, okay. So in the beginning we looked at how are they different? Yeah, sure, they have this um dedication to the mission, but Daredevil's more willing to work with Batman, and Batman's just like, get out of my way. I don't want to work with you. And we see all these differences. And then at the end, when you feel like it should be, say Daredevil about ready to throw a shuriken at Two Face, and Batman throws a batarang and knocks it out of the air, and he gives the whole no killing. Like we see that so many times when we see a Batman crossover with another character because Batman has a no killing rule, and so many characters really don't care. Um, so it kind of revisits that connection of Batman and Daredevil being the Marvel's Batman. And then at the end, we revisit the Daredevil Two Face backstory as Daredevil appeals to Harvey's balance in chaos and order, the coin flipping, and again, this is very, very clever and a clever way to end the book, as all things are seeming out of hand. It's a good way to tie things up and show that Daredevil maybe was right about Harvey Dent still being in there for Toothface. Um, Things have gone from, bad to a lot worse, and Hyde is getting ready to kill one of the hostages, and um, Harvey has it's kind of like an antidote, but it destroys the processor that is in the host body while also knocking them out. And Daredevil is able to get it from Two Face because he is able to reason that another pointless death just puts more on the chaos side, and then the scales are off balance, and it makes a lot more sense if you read the backstory, or not the backstory, but the flashback within the comic. But again, when I read it, I thought, oh, that's a really clever way to then get out of this and disband and have it be in the appropriate way for both of our lead characters. At the very end, um, Batman and Daredevil are at a Wayne charity event together, and there's a clever exchange between them where they both know, you know, um, they both kind of are like, oh yeah, I know who you are. Like they give hints to each other that they know, and whatnot. The art in this book is really, really good. And the world blending is superb. Like I said, a lot of times my mind goes to Batman Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, where the turtles fall in some dimensional thing and end up in the DC universe. Now reading this one, I think that it takes a lot more skill to blend worlds together that don't belong together without using, again, space time jumping, dimension jumping, supernatural spells, or some kind of divine intervention. To make it feel like it has always been there, was pretty clever. So you take Batman and put him in New York. New York has a ton of superheroes, and we know it exists. It would have felt weird, I think, pulling Daredevil to Gotham City because in the Marvel universe, we don't have any heroes in Gotham, but in the DC universe, New York feels more plausible, if that makes sense. And then there is a mention of Superman from other characters. I actually, off the top of my head, I can't really remember who mentioned it, but there is a mention of Superman. So it's another layer that adds this kind of affirmation that yes, these two worlds exist together. Another thing that I felt was done really well with this book is balancing both heroes. You have to remember that Dan Chichester wrote Daredevil. It would have been a lot easier for him to write a Daredevil book and sprinkle, have featuring Batman, but this is a Daredevil Batman book. Both of their names are on the title. Um, so you have to balance that appropriately, and I think he did a phenomenal job making sure that the balance was just the way it should have been. You get an equal amount of both characters. Um, and you don't really ever feel like one or the other is a lead. And actually, in the interview, when I said Daredevil Batman, I said, "How do you get a Batman character in a Daredevil book?" He kind of paused and said, "Well, is it a Daredevil book or is it a Batman book?" And um, before I hadn't read the this comic until after the interview, and I get what he's saying now because um, whose book is it? That it's so well balanced and evened out that it is a good split. With that being said, that is really all I have for this, other than to tell you if you haven't read it, get on it. And look, I know what you're thinking, like, holy cow, that's got to be found it for a good price. I don't remember off the top of my head what I paid for it, but you can find this book for a good price. Just browse around the internet. You're probably going to find a used copy. You're not going to be able to send it to CGC and get a 9.8 out of it, but you can find this book, and I believe it is worthwhile. So I'm telling you to get on it. But until next time, guys, get out there and save the world, you bunch of heroes.